Hello everyone. So in this session, I'm going to discuss page object model in Selenium. So let's understand what is a page model in Selenium. Page model is nothing, it is a design pattern. It is a simple design pattern. By following that design pattern, we can write the Selenium script. So you have seen last time we have written several Selenium scripts. You can check it under SRC test Java package. We have testing package. You can check here. We have written several testing. Yes, you can check here. And here you have written the code. Yes, no. Now what my requirement? Now we want to implement the Selenium script by using the page object model approach. Let's understand what is a page object model approach. So page object model is a design pattern for creating the object repository for web UI elements. Okay, what meaning of this line? Actually, suppose you are going to write any Selenium script for any web application. So web application is nothing. Web application is a collection of web pages. Web application is nothing, collection of a web page. Within a one application, you can have several web pages. And you need to test any one of the page. You can write a script to test any one of the page. So in if you are writing a script for testing the functionality of any one of the web page of your application, so now we are follow the page object model approach. In this approach, basically what I'm going to do, for every page, for every web page, we are creating one class, page class. So for every web page, yes, no, corresponding every web page, we are creating one page class. We are creating one page class. So we can represent your web page by using this page class. Actually, web page what contain, guys? Web element contains. Web page contains web element. So now for web page, for each web page, we are creating a separate page class. So we can represent our web page by using this page class. And basically this page class contains a variable. This web class basically what holds? This page class will have a variable storing attribute value to identify the web element. So for every web page corresponding what we are creating one web page class. We are creating one page class. In this page class, we have variables, and those variables will store the value to identify web element. It means it contains the locator's reference to identify the web element. Along with variable, this page class will also contain the method which perform operation on the web element. So it means once you create a page class, yes, no, for every web page, we are creating a page class. This page class contains attributes, and those attributes basically contains the locators to identify web elements. And now it contains a method also. This method which can be used to perform operation on the web element. So if you want to test any web page, any functionality of your web page you want to test, you can test those functionality by invoking your corresponding page class. So page object model is nothing. In this approach, yes, no, we are follow this approach. In this approach, for every web page, we are creating a web page class. For every web page, we are creating one page class. It means in this model, for each web page in the application, there should be a page class. This page class will have variable storing attributes value to identify the web element, and this page class will also contains method which perform operation on the web element. So this is a design pattern. We are following this design pattern for writing the Selenium script. What the advantage of this approach? What the benefits of this design pattern we will discuss later on. Once we implement this design pattern, then we will check what is the benefit we have by following this design pattern. Okay, let's now we are try to implement. Yes, no, we are going to write one Selenium script by following the page object model design pattern. So now you can check here. Here we have one web page, Swag Labs. So now we want to test a login functionality of this web page. So we have this web page of the saucerdemo.com application. So this is a Swag Lab login page. I need to write to verify the login functionality for this web page. So now I'm going to write login functionality by following the page object model design pattern. Let's we are try to implement by from the scratch. Let's we are try to. So now we are opening our Eclipse ID. In this Eclipse ID, we are going to create a separate project here. So let's we have created one separate project. Here we have created one project with name Selenium page object model. So in this model, so go to the src test Java. We have already added the dependencies. Whatever dependencies we have required in the pom.xml file, we have required Selenium Java dependency, WebDriver Manager dependency, and TestNG dependency. So dependency already we have added. Now we are going to create first of all base test class, which contains common logic as like launching a browser, loading a web page, and closing the browser. So go to the src test Java package. Under that package, under this folder, I'm going to create one separate class. I give the class name like a base class. Base class. I give the class name like a base class. And now I give the package name like also base package. Now you can finish it. Now you can check here. Now we have created base class. Now this base class basically what contain. Now in this base class, you can check here. We are defining one driver variable. So private, I'm defining one variable like a web driver, web driver, and now I give the name like a web driver. And then I define one public method also here, public, and which return web driver, public web driver get driver. I define one method, get driver. This method simply return a web driver. Whatever web driver we have, we can return that web driver. So let's we return the web driver. So in this base class, I declare one web driver type variable, and then we have declared get driver method. This method used to simply return your web driver. And now we define one more method, setup method. So public void setup method. I'm going to define setup method. This method will take two parameters, string browser, and second parameter it will take URL, string URL, string URL. This method, this setup method is a parameterized method which take two parameters. One is a, you can check here, one is the setup, this method will take two parameters. One is a browser and other is a URL. Now, this method actually, this method we need to execute before executing all the test method in your class. So this method needs to be executed before executing all test cases in the current class. So you can annotate this method using before annotation, before class annotation. Now this method automatic executing before executing all the test cases in the current class. Now this method is a parameterized method. So we are define one suit. From the suit, while we running the suit, we are passing some parameter. Now those parameter value we want to map with our this method request, our method parameter. Then our method parameter we have need to annotate at the rate parameters annotation. This annotation already we have discussed. Now here you can pass those parameter name. Let's check here, guys. So under src test resource folder, we have created one XML file, testng.xml file, where we have defined our suit. So open the testng.xml file. Here you can check here we have create suit. Now within a suit we have configured this parameter. Parameter name is a browser. You can check here. Here we define one parameter name with name browser. Now we define one more parameter with name URL. Now what is the browser name? Suppose I give the browser name is the edge. And now what the URL? You can check here. You can copy this URL saucerdemo.com and you can pass here that URL value. So here we have configured these two parameters. One parameter name is a browser, another parameter name is a URL. We copy the path here. And now we have created one test under suit. Now under test, we have created classes. Now which classes we need to add under this suit, we will mention later on. Okay, first we use this parameter. Now these parameters we want to configure with our this method. So now this method we can annotate at the rate parameter, and now we can pass those parameter name. So first parameter browser and the second parameter is a URL. So in which order you're defining those parameters? Yes, no? Now this parameter value will be configured with your method parameter. So what's the problem? Attribute value is undefined to the okay. Actually, your annotation name is a okay. Remove just what's the annotation name at the rate parameters. You can check your annotation name is at the rate parameters. Now here you can pass all those parameters name that you have mentioned in your testng.xml file. First parameter is a browser. Second parameter is a URL. So first parameter value will be bind with our method parameter. Second parameter value will be bind with second parameter of our method parameter. Okay, now our method is ready. And now we have defined one more method. Inside this method, we are writing the logic to launching a browser. So let's now we open that method. So here I'm going to define one more method. So I'm define one more method public void initialize method. And now this method will take two parameter string browser comma string URL. It will take two parameter browser and URL. This method will take two parameter. Now which browser you will want to launch? You can use switch statement here. Switch, and now you can pass your browser value. Now we can pass your browser. Okay. Let's here you can check yes no. You can write case if your browser is a edge yes no. If your browser is a edge a colon, and now you can launch a driver. You can set up a driver. So we need to first of all we need to set up a driver for which browser? Edge browser. How we can set up? Using WebDriver Manager. WebDriver Manager we need to call edge driver method, then we need to call setup method. Now we need to initialize our WebDriver by creating the instance of edge driver. So new edge driver. And after initialize yes no, then what we need to do? We need to load a web page. So you can say WebDriver dot get method, you can call a get method, and you can pass the URL that you want to do. And then after you can use the break keyword. Then similar, you can write here one more case. So just you can copy and paste, and here we can paste. Suppose we want to launch which should be a Chrome driver. So WebDriver dot now here we need to call which method? Chrome driver. We need to set up which driver? Chrome driver. And now we need to initialize our WebDriver with which driver instance? Chrome driver. And then we launch a web page. Similar, we need to write one more test case. One more case. Suppose we're writing Firefox. So let's here we call the method Firefox driver. And then we need to create Firefox driver. And then we need to launch. Okay. So our initialize method is ready. Initialize method basically what does? It will initialize your driver. Initialize method basically it will take browser and URL, and it will launch a browser. it will initialize your web driver and will load a web page in the current browser window. So this method we are invoking inside your setup method, inside setup method. So when we call the setup method, yes, no, setup method is a testing lifecycle method. That method gets executed automatically before executing your test case. So here you can call this initialize method where you have written the initialization code. You can pass your browser value and URL value. Now your setup method is ready. Now once setup method ready, now then you can call here one method, yes, no, tear down. Here we can define one method, public void tear down, tear down. And this method needs to execute after executing the test case. So once all test case executed of a class, then this method needs to be executed. So you can annotate this method using @ after class annotation. And now here you can call WebDriver.quit method. Now we can close the WebDriver. So now here you can check here we in this base class, we have defined our WebDriver. And now if you want to get a WebDriver, you can get using getDriver method. Initialize method basically perform initialization activity. And setup method basically set up your browser and WebDriver for you. And tear down method gets executed after executing all the test cases. Now we have done our base page class. Now next step, we need to define our page class for which login page. So let's now we're going to create login page. Okay, so now under that src test java, yes or no, I'm going to create new package, yes or no, I'm going to create a new packages. So you can create a package. I give the package name like a pages, which contain all the pages. So actually for every page, for every web page, we need to define one page class. So now here we need to define a page class for which web page or swag lab. So this is a login page. So I am going to define one login page which represent your login page of your web application. So corresponding login web page, I am going to create one page class login and login page. I give the class name login page. You can give any name, meaningful name. Now this login page class basically what contain, guys? This login page class basically contains variable and which contains locators for to identify your web element. So first of all, you can check here in your web page how many elements you need to identify for performing the login activity. There are 3 elements we need required: username, password, and login. Okay, now if you want to find out username, you can click on inspect button and you can find a username and you can write a XPath. So here which element we need to find? Username. So I need to find that input element, suppose, and now here we are using square bracket and here we specify the predicate. Okay, here we can identify this element uniquely by using an ID attribute whose ID attribute value is matches user hyphen name. This is a locator. Now you can check here. Here we are able to identify. Okay, sorry. You're writing down. Okay, @ID attribute value equal to what the value? User hyphen name. Now you can check it. You are able to identify that web element. So you can copy this XPath and go to your page class. In page class, you can declare one variable which can hold the locator for your username element. So here we declare one variable by type, yes, no, because this variable, this type variable can hold the reference of your web element. So I give the name I select username. You can give a meaningful name username. Now, how we can you locate that element using XPath locator? So here we are using by.xpath, XPath, XPath, and we can pass our XPath in the form of string as an argument to this method. So this line what did? It will find the reference of that web element and will store that reference into the username variable. So it means now whenever you want to use that username, you not required to locate every time. Now this variable of login page class contains the reference of your username element of your web page. So now whenever you require, you can access that element by using this variable. No need to write every time. If you want to find this element in multiple places, no need to write locators to find that element. Now you can find that element by using that variable. You can access that variable because this variable containing the locators to identify your web element. That is the advantage one, guys, if you're using page object model approach. So in the page model approach, for each web page, we are creating a separate page class. In this page class, we define the variable which contain the locators to identify your web element. So inside the page class, you can declare a variable which contain the reference, which contain the locators to identify your web element. So here we record one more variable which contain the locators to identify password element. Yes, so I using the XPath by dot XPath, and now you can pass your XPath. So you can check here. I want to identify which element. I want to identify password element. So what the password? You can check ID the password. So you can identify that element using ID attribute also. So here we writing password. Password. Now you can check it. You are able to find out. So now go to the again Eclipse and you can pass your XPath locator. Now here we have declared three variables. First variable contains the username locators. Second variable contains the password locators. Now we record one more that is a button. Yes, no? Login underscore, I give the name like button. So now here we are using again XPath. So by dot XPath, using XPath, we are locating that web element. So let's now we want to locate which web element? Login button. So now you can check here this button also having one attribute. You can check here login hyphen button. So you can identify using their ID attribute. So what is ID attribute? Login hyphen button. So login hyphen button. Okay. Now you can check it. You're able to find out. So go to the Eclipse and now you can specify your locators now. Now here you can check here. Here we define three variables. And first variable contain the locators for username web field. Second variable contain the locators to identify password element. And third locator contain the reference to identify your login button. So in the page model approach, first define the variable and identify how many elements you need to identify in your web page. That number of variables you can define in your page class, and each variable contain the reference of each web element to identify uniquely. Okay, then after that you can define a method inside the page class which contain the action that you want to perform on the web element. So here we define one action like public void set username. So this method basically helps to setting the username value into the into the guys your username field. So you can check here. Actually, username variable what contains? It contains the locator to identify a web element. Yes or no? How you can identify any web element? By using locators, you record WebDriver. In WebDriver, you have find element method and you can pass the locator to find that web element. So it means in login page class, you record WebDriver also. Why? Because you need to find the web element. So web element you can find using WebDriver. So you can declare one WebDriver variable. Now just declare this variable. Now, WebDriver we need to provide. When you using the login page class, we need to hand over the WebDriver to your login page class. So how we can provide yes no WebDriver to your login page, because login page dependent on a WebDriver. So it means has one dependency. Just like suppose guys, you want to call to someone, so it means you are a person. Now you dependent on mobile object. If you have mobile object, using that mobile you can call to someone. So similar here, login page is dependent on WebDriver. Once login page has a driver, using WebDriver, login page able to find out the element by passing the appropriate locators. So now person actually dependent on a mobile object. So we need to provide mobile object to the person. Then person can use that mobile object and can perform calling operation. Similar login page is dependent on WebDriver. So we need to provide WebDriver to login page. So how we can provide? We can provide using the constructor. So we define a constructor login page class constructor, which will receive as an argument WebDriver, whatever WebDriver will it receive, and that WebDriver we are initializing into the WebDriver property. So this dot WebDriver we are initialized by the given WebDriver. Because constructor gets invoked once you create a login page instance. Constructor automatic will invoke once you create the instance for a class. So now we are injecting this dependency, WebDriver dependency to the login page class by calling login page class constructor. Okay, once you get a WebDriver, using WebDriver, now you can call find element method, and you can pass locators. So here we have one variable username which contains the locators to identify username web element. So you can pass that variable name because it contains that locators. And now once you find this element, then what action you want to perform? I want to send a key. So you can call method send keys. Using send keys method, you can send a text to the web element. What text you want to send? Whatever you have received as an argument. In the argument, you have received username value. That username we have passed. Now, now whenever you want to set yes, no, any value to your username web element of login page class, just you can set by calling this method. Now similar, we have defined one method, public password, set password. Now we can take a parameter like pwd, and now we can find web element, WebDriver dot find element, and now we can find an element by which element? Password web element. Then we can call send keys method, then we can pass value pwd. Okay, then now what we need to do, I want to click on login button. So we can define one more method. Using that method, we can perform operation on click operation on a button. So here we define one method with name on click. So now here we can first find that web element, WebDriver dot find element. Now we are find the web element, which button? Login button. And once you find out, then which operation you want to perform, click action. So you can check here in this login page class, we have defined a variable, and these variables contain the locator for your web element of your web page. And inside this web page class, inside the page class, we have defined a method. Using this method, we can perform action on a web element. Let's now we define one more method like public void login to swag lab, login to swag lab. Where we want to log in? Swag lab. So now this method basically will receive two variable username and comma string pwd password. Now we call this method now. So when you want to perform login, first of all, you need to set the username value. So already we have defined one method set username. You can call this method and pass the username value. This method will set the username value into the username web element. Then you need to set the password. You can call the method. You can set the value. Then you want to click yes or no. So you can call method on click yes or no. On click method yes or no. Once you call the on click method, it will click on the login button. Okay, let's save it. So these are methods we have defined. Now this login page class basically used to represent which class, guys? This login page class basically represent your login page of your Swag Lab application. Now we are going to define our test. So now go to the SRC test Java folder and now go to the new, and here we have created one more class. I give the class name like test swag lab. Swag labs. Now I'm going to create a separate package also. I give the package name like testing package. Let's finish it. In the test swag lab, let's we define one method, guys. So now we define a method. Okay. So actually our first of all we need to launch a browser. So launching browser code already we have written where? Launching browser code already we have written where? Already we have written inside a base test class. We have written inside the base test class. So what we need to do? We need to call that base test class. So let's now we call the base test class. Okay. So this is a base class which contains the common logic, yes or no? Launching browser like. So in our test swag lab class also we require that logic. So what you can do, guys? Nothing you can do. You can extend, yes or no? You can extend, and now which class you can extend? Base class. Base class. Base class. Extend the base class. Now in this class you can check here you require web driver, yes no? So you can declare web driver, web driver, web driver. Now here I'm going to define one method, public void setup method. In this class also I'm going to define one setup method, and this method needs to be executed. You can check here at the rate before class. Before class. So go to the base class. Here you can check here. This is a parameterized method. This is a setup, and this is a non-parameterized method. And this class, this method, inside this method, basically what I'm going to do, I'm initialize the web driver. How you can initialize? So already in base class we have one method get driver. You can call the get driver method. Get driver method will return a driver, and whatever it will return the driver, that driver will initialize. Because in the base class have written the logic for initializing the driver. Yes or no? Once the driver is initialized, you want to use that web driver, you can call this method. This method return that web driver. And now same web driver here we want to use, you can call get driver method, it return that web driver. And then here you can write a code public void verify login. Verify login method. And now this method we can annotate using at the rate test annotation. Now you want to test functionality for which web page? I want to test functionality for login page. So no need to locate, identify element, yes, no, and needs to perform action on web element directly. Actually, you want to test your login page, yes, no, this login page you want to test. So to represent this login page, yes, no, we have created one page class. So you can create the instance of that page class. What is the page class? Login page. Just create the instance, and this login page class is dependent on, guys, web driver. This login page class you can check it dependent on web driver. You can pass your web driver as an argument. So whatever web driver we have inside here, now we can pass that web driver to our login page. Now login page receive a web driver. And then in this login page, you can check here, guys, we have one method. Which method? Login to Swag Lab. And you can pass your username and password. So suppose we are passing username and password, you can check here. Your username is a by default is a standard underscore user. Suppose I'm passing this username. And now we're passing the password secret underscore saucer. We're passing the password. Once you log in successfully, you can check here. Now you can check here. Suppose once you log in successfully, you enter the password. You enter the username. If login is successfully, then you are navigating to which web page, then your page URL becomes this one. Yes, So you can copy this URL. If login is successfully, then you can check your current page URL. So how you can retrieve current page URL using WebDriver dot get current URL. This method return the string representation of the current URL that browser looking it. So you can store in one variable string actual URL, and then you can take one variable in which you can store expected URL. Expected URL. And now you can check here. You can put semicolon. If you want to compare actual URL and expected URL, you can use assert. Assert. You can check in the assert. We have method assert equals. Assert equals method basically used to compare your actual URL and expected URL value, both are same, then it will pass your test case. So here we have written, you can check here one test case to verify your login activity by following the page object model approach. Okay, let's run it and check first of all. Okay, now here you can check, here you will get the error. The reason is that we need to pass those parameter value. Actually, we have defined here testng.xml file, yes, no? And this testng.xml file, here we need to configure our test class. Okay, let's now we configure our test class. You can maximize it, minimize it. Okay, what is your test class name? Your test class name is a test swag lab. So go to your testng.xml file. In this testng.xml file, here you can, in the class, within a class, you can specify your class for which class you want which test class you want to include. So which class you want to include? So our testing class available under testing package. We have one testing package. Under testing package, we have one class test swag lab. Now you can check it. Test swag lab. Go to the test swag lab, and now we can run all once again and check. Okay, check here again. We're getting the error. What is the error? Actually, it's saying yes, no, setup method is a browser is a required method on the setup method, but it has not been marked using optional para annotation. Okay, what meaning of this line? Let's understand. Okay, actually, whatever parameter you have specified, you can check here, those parameter may be missed. If your those parameter values missing, yes or no? Here you can check here. Then if those parameter values missing, then if you want to specify some optional default value, then you can define optional value using the optional annotation. Now your method parameter you have need to annotate optional annotation. Okay, if suppose your parameter value is missing, what the optional value? Suppose optional value is the age. Similar for URL, if your parameter value is missing, then it needs to take which value? What is the optional value that you want to pass? You can pass that optional value. Let's save it once again. Go to the test swag lab and run all once again. Now you can check here your test case is passed. Okay, let's once again run. If you want to run once again, now you can check here. Now you can check here. Now you can check here, your test case is passed. And now it's working. Expected. Okay, so you can check here, guys. So here we are writing, yes, no, a Selenium script to verify the login activity by following the page object model approach. So you can check here, guys, what the advantage of this page object model approach. Now, whenever you want to use those web element anywhere, yes, no, in other text classes also, you have not required to find and locate those elements again and again. You can use that web page, yes, no, using the login page class, and there is a arm method already available. What action you want to perform on those elements, there is a method is available. You can call those method and you can perform action on the element for a web page. So that is a page object model approach is more better approach that we need to follow and that we need to adhere while you writing the Selenium script. I hope it's clear.